Welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Newell with MSO News Sports. We are joined by Rebecca and Ben Fundus from the screening room in Newburyport. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Let's get this show underway here, as they say in the movie business. I guess first off, you've owned this theater in Newburyport for now just 2 years. In fact, we're talking almost exactly 2 years to as we record this. So tell us how you got into, how did you buy a theater? What's the thought process? What, you were sitting around, not a lot to do one day, and you decide to let's look for a theater somewhere.
Well, so long ago, Becca worked in a movie theater in upstate New York called Upstate Films for a long time, and then in about 2008, I started working there. We sort of,
We met each
we
other
looked
in
at
a
each
movie
other
theater.
like kind of right away, and we're like, I'm into this in the same way that you're into this, and so we worked together really, really well from the get-go. We did that for a few years. I ended up taking off from that place, and then eventually Becca also ended up leaving, so we were out of the movie business exhibition for a while, and then
it was mid-pandemic, and we just heard from a friend of ours who books the cinema for the former owners, that the cinema was for sale, and he on a whim, we drove out. We'd been holed up in our house just like everyone else, not going anywhere at all in the pandemic and in the early stages, and we took a little road trip to Newburyport to check it out, and we kind of just fell in love with it. And before we knew it, we were selling our house to sort of finance the purchase of the cinema. Yeah.
So for about, we both had about 20 years plus each living in the Hudson Valley in New York.
Yeah.
And we dropped everything, sold our house, left all of our friends, and moved to Newburyport, Massachusetts, which would, not from Massachusetts at all. And and started running a movie theater in the middle of a respiratory pandemic.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. You got a pandemic, you got a theater, you got all these restrictions. Did any of that sound dangerous to you as a move to buying a theater during the pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. I think you have to be a little bit crazy. And really, we love independent cinemas so much, as I think, is obvious by the story, but it was an opportunity that wouldn't necessarily present itself again. It happened to be there because the pandemic happened, and then the cinema needed someone to take it so that it would survive the pandemic. And we felt like doing that and taking that on.
And we could see the amount of love that people had for the screening room, immediately. And we knew that an opportunity to take something over like that with means that we had would not come again. Like most of the theaters that do as well as the screening room does, they're a nonprofit, so they have a board attached, or they're attached to a cultural sort of network of playhouses and things. And so it was a very, very unique opportunity that we had to jump on. So we did it.
Yeah.
We have a link up there with some of the history of the theater, but is there an interesting historical fact that you want to share with us about the history of the theater? A 40-year-old theater owned, you've owned it now for 2 years. What's a historical note of interest here?
I mean, the thing that jumps out to me is just that it's built on tenacity. Like the former owners, they did not know what they were doing when they started out. They wanted to show movies in Newburyport, and so they got a bunch of equipment. They got some speakers and some wires and some seats and some 16mm projectors, and they screened movies at the YMCA for years, and would set up and tear down after every screening. And it was 5+ years before they ended up moving into the space that it's currently in 1982. And they put everything together with recycled materials, and it's been a product of love and passion from the very, very beginning. And I think that's what appeals to people that love it so much. So
Tell me about the technology piece here, because obviously that this industry has evolved technically, a lot in the last 20 years for sure, and beyond, obviously. But what does the screening room have, and where have you come along on technology?
Sure. I mean, so after they started with 16 millimeter, but when they opened the screening room, but they moved to 35 millimeter projectors. And then around 2012, 2013, the entire industry started shifting to digital. So they fundraised for the digital projector that's there now. And unlike the 35 millimeter projectors that existed before, that would last forever and ever and ever if you just kept maintaining them, because it's a beautiful little machine. The new projectors are computers that will need updating over time, and new ones will need to be purchased. So we'll have to go through that again. There will be, there's a life to that projector that's shorter than the 35 millimeter. But yeah, we've got a really lovely little sound system. Since we've come in, we've put in some extra stage lighting and microphones for special events, and then does some video stuff every once in a while when we have speakers, so we can record what's happening and also share it with people who aren't able to make it into the cinema or who weren't able to make it to that specific event. So inside the cinema, it's a small space, and from the street you would never know that there's like a real movie theater right there.
yeah, the only technology I believe that we changed when we came in was we started taking credit cards.
Right.
That was
Oh my, whoa.
So
yeah.
You got to do that nowadays. You really do.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So if I want some popcorn, I can pay for it. That old-fashioned popcorn machine, we have a posted down there, the picture of it. You can pay for it with a credit card then.
You can.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me just jump. So we're putting this up first week of August now. So what's showing, and what do we have for the month of August, or a highlight or two? Tell me about show days and times and that kind of things.
Yeah, we generally every day we run 2 shows a day around 4:30. It depends on the length of the movies, but right now we're running Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris at 4:30 and 7, and then it has extra matinees on Wednesday and on the weekend. But so that'll have just 2 days left when this episode comes out, and then we're starting Hallelujah, a Leonard Cohen documentary. And that's going to be, we're going to have a special event on August 5th, Friday, August 5th with that movie. We partnered with Dino Records and with a local music historian called Lee Briers. So she's going to do a little intro for the film. Dino Records has dropped off a whole bunch of really beautiful LPs and CDs for sale. And for the same price as the regular movie admission, you can come to this tiny little event on opening night. And then we'll have the Hallelujah movie for 1 week. And then a week later, we'll open Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which is a crazy name, but a beautiful little movie.
A beautiful stop motion animation about a tiny little mollusk who's trying to find all of his friends and family that have disappeared from a sock drawer.
They got lost.
So where do the people that come to your theater, where do they come from, and what, they must come from all around, I'm thinking.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
Newburyport, yeah.
All the way up into New Hampshire, and then I'd say down to just north of Salem, most likely. Some from Salem, yeah. So that far.
A lot of people come up from Ipswich and Rowley.
Yeah, that's the main.
And a lot of Newburyport residents as well.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, hopefully we can drive some people up from lower Essex County up here to the theater here in the next few days here. We'll see what happens there. So you bought a theater. So what is what's an unexpected problem or two you've dealt with, or what is, or on the other side, what's an unexpected really plus for dealing with this on a theater? Yeah.
I mean, the plus for me is having such an interesting perspective, or just like from our position, getting to know a whole bunch of people really, really fast. And, really being welcomed by a community that is extremely grateful that the screening room is still around. I think a lot of people saw a lot of businesses closing in town and just assumed that, the time was ticking for, a place like the screening room. And so they're really glad that, we took the leap that we did, and feeling that is really special to me.
I'd say he stole my answer. Mine's the same. It's the best way to, for me, this is why I love working in cinemas in the first place. It's such a great way to like connect with an entire cross section of people. And film by film, you can program something that draws people out that you haven't seen before because it's, a foreign language film, or it's a topical interest like mushrooms. People will come out you get all the foragers for a movie about mushrooms. So it's fun in that sense. You can reach out to different audiences and pull them into your town, but you can also get a sense of like all these little pockets of people who live in the region. It's such a fun way to meet people. And I also have to say, because you show a movie night after night, you see everyone's reactions. And generally we show movies that we connect to, that we like, because we program it ourselves. And so I also I appreciate, the way that people get moved. I'm moved by that myself. It's great. You get really attached to certain titles. I was shocked how attached I got to Elvis last week. I was a little verklempt when it was its last screening. I was surprised. But it's a wonderful thing to be able to entertain people, to be able to inform people, to work with different groups, and it's just a great feeling.
But if there was a negative thing, that's my department.
Ben, thanks for reminding yourself of the question there. Yeah. Okay.
You have a nice conversation with somebody, they're coming in to see the film, and they're like, and they buy 2, Tootsie Roll Pops or something like that. And they're like, hey, have a good, they, like, good to see you, da, da, da. And they go see the movie, and then they leave the Tootsie Roll sticks like on the floor.
Oh,
it's just like, that's the sort of thing. It's like the human nature part of it.
Because you get attached to movies as well. They cannot like a movie that you really, really love.
I wouldn't call that surprising.
That's not surprising. That just happens.
But yeah, people will come out sometime. The question that I know where it's going is usually, did you like that movie?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, yes, I did.
So you guys picked this movie that I just watched that I didn't like. Is that the kind of attitude you get once in a while?
Yeah.
But that's art, I guess. That's the way it is, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I don't believe that every movie is out there to necessarily please everyone. Like you don't always have to have that good feeling at the end of a movie. You can, it's okay to have a movie give you something to think about for a few days.
Yeah.
I like that personally, but other people.
Back to the physical aspect of the theater. What uniquely physically, is there anything unique about the theater itself? And do you rent it out for other purposes, or do you do other things other than, I think Rebecca, you might have mentioned this, you might do special events there. So what else happens there at the theater?
We used to during the pandemic, we did some rentals. We were closed for a period of time. And so that was our way of bringing in, small groups of people, families and pods. But we've stopped doing those because we wanted to add public showtimes. So things got busy enough again that we were able to make that work for us instead of rentals. And yeah, we do special events. And I think that's so on weekends, when we have 3 showtimes, we'll use maybe a matinee and work with a community group and show a topical screening, or we'll do it on like a Tuesday night or something like that. But yeah, we'll do topical screenings, working with all sorts of local groups who work with the Peg Center for Art and Activism. We're working with Dino Records next week. We work with the Newburyport Documentary Film Festival, which is coming up really soon, right around the corner in September.
And we're trying to figure out how to work with a number of different groups in Newburyport.
Absolutely.
Currently, like
anyone.
the Newburyport Art Association and others.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's got to be a real treasure to have something like that in Newburyport, a unique town, unique city, I should say. Ben, Becca, are there anything else you want to share with us about the theater that I didn't ask you about that you think is important?
No, just we hope that anyone who listens to this gives it a shot and comes on out and sees a movie. That'd be great.
Yeah, if you're at all curious about seeing movies with other people and kind of getting out of the pattern of sitting at home all the time that everybody got into during the pandemic, it's a great way to get out of your normal element and check something new out. So best way to support art and movies and community businesses is to come support them. So
Let me just follow up on that last point you made, Ben, because and maybe you probably are a pretty good judge of this. Is what are people feeling about that piece? People are obviously are going out more. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? To different things. Their guard is down, obviously,
Mhm.
and it seems like they're restoring and doing pretty much what they did
Yeah,
pre-pandemic at this point.
Yep.
But still, I could see one barrier could be entering a theater. You know, and I could see that. You know, and I'm sure
Yep.
you know as well. But having said that, though, it's not a lot different than entering anything else, to be quite honest with you, right?
right.
And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of that's what it's kind of settling into now, is that yeah, if people are feeling confident anywhere, they're feeling confident everywhere. And more, it's still an upward trajectory, which is great. But it's definitely improving. And people are clearly enjoying, running into each other in the lobby and talking to each other out front after a movie or something like that. So it's wonderful to see people connecting with one another again.
Well, Ben and Rebecca, thank you so much for taking some time to join us. Great meeting you, and we'll of course have links up on this post to your website, to the theater, and so on. And best of luck with everything moving forward.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much for having us.
Take care.